Hi everyone. In today's Yellowstone podcast, I'm going to be talking about the Lamar Valley. Not only is the scenery absolutely stunning as you make your way towards Yellowstone's northeast entrance, but it's also the best place in the entire park to see wildlife. As always, there are two ways that you can listen to or watch this podcast. You can download it or listen to it wherever you get your podcasts. Or if you'd like to follow along as I show you a map of Yellowstone with where the Lamar Valley is, you can also watch this podcast on YouTube. So you can either go to our site yellowstonepodcasts.com, search for the podcast you want, and click on it and it'll take you to YouTube, or go to YouTube, search for Yellowstone Tours, and that is Yellowstone Tours in just one word. YouTube will ask you if you meant Yellowstone Space Tours. Say no, I just want Yellowstone Tours, one word. That'll show you our channel. Search for this podcast and you can watch along. You can also, if it's safe to do so, take a look at a map of the park at our motel site, westyellowstonelodge.com/map. That's westyellowstonelodge.com/map. That'll show you a map of the park. Obviously, please don't do so unless it's safe to do so and you're not driving. So if you're watching on YouTube or if you've got a map up, I'm going to zoom in on the Lamar Valley. And for those of you who can't see it, the Lamar Valley is located in the northeast section of Yellowstone, between an area called Tower Roosevelt and the northeast entrance. Yellowstone's roads, as you may know by now, are divided into two loops. The roads through the park make up a gigantic figure of eight. We're on the so-called upper loop of the figure of eight, and we're heading out from Tower Roosevelt to the east towards the Lamar Valley. Now, what I'm going to do for those of you who are watching this on YouTube, we also have a virtual Yellowstone tour of this route, and you can see it by going to our site virtualyellowstonetours.com again, search for it, or you can just watch as I show it on this Yellowstone podcast as well. For those of you who are watching it on YouTube, we're not quite in the Lamar Valley yet. The Lamar Valley is one of two areas in Yellowstone which are really known for their wildlife. Obviously, the Lamar Valley is one, the Hayden Valley is the other. The Lamar Valley, I think it's generally agreed, is the preferred place to go watch wildlife if you have the choice. And I'll tell you more about that shortly. The Lamar Valley occurs where the Lamar River flows next to the road that runs between Tower Junction and the northeast entrance. And you'll see as you drop down, if you're coming from Tower Junction, that the valley opens up. You've got this wonderful lush valley. There's several other rivers there, including Soda Butte Creek and Slough Creek, and it's this wonderfully wild expanse of terrain which is so open, and it's got so much wildlife, and for a lot of the year so much greenery, and there's a lot of wildlife that you can hopefully see there: bison, coyotes, pronghorn, elk, badgers, grizzly bears, really importantly, bald eagles, osprey, and of course the wolves. Now, if you're watching on YouTube, we're basically just getting into the Lamar Valley at the moment. The mountains in the background on the right-hand side, not quite in view at the moment, but we saw them a little while ago, are the Absaroka Mountains. They're pronounced Absaroka, but spelled Absaroka. Now, the Lamar Valley is probably the best place in the entire world to try and spot wolves. Yep, in the entire world. What happened was, back in 1995, wolves were reintroduced into Yellowstone, and 3 locations in the Lamar Valley were selected as the locations where the wolves were going to be reintroduced. These were Soda Butte, which is really easy to find if you drive through the Lamar Valley. It's basically on the east side of the valley. It's a remnant of a thermal feature. And then Crystal Creek and Rose Creek, which are a little bit further off the road. Now, the subject of the reintroduction of wolves is another Yellowstone podcast, and you can also hear about it and see it in one of our virtual Yellowstone tours. So let's talk about where you would consider staying if you really wanted to access the Lamar Valley. The 2 best choices are Cooke City and Silvergate. And if you're watching this on YouTube, or if you're looking at a map, and I'm showing the map again, if you go to the northeast entrance, you'll see that there's 2 small towns outside the northeast entrance. These are Cooke City and the even smaller settlement of Silvergate. There's not that many places to stay there, but if you can find one, this would be the prime location because it is the closest area where there's lodging outside the park, where you can access the Lamar Valley. Now, if you're doing your course, there are some cabins at the ranger station in the Lamar Valley, but for most of us, that wouldn't be an option. The other place, and I'm showing you it at the moment on the map, or go to westyellowstonelodge.com/map, and you'll see the small town of Gardner, which is just outside the north entrance to Yellowstone. It's a bit of a drive to get there, but it is preferable to staying at West Yellowstone, which is where our office is, where our tour company is located, and you can see our tours at yellowstonetours.net. That's yellowstonetours.net if you did want a guided tour of the area, including the Lamar Valley. West Yellowstone is a bit of a hassle to leave from to get to the Lamar Valley. If you look at the map again, you'll see it's all the way over on the west side, in fact the southwest side of the park, so it is a bit of a drive. And one of the issues that you need to consider is that the best time to see wolves, and for that matter grizzly bears and a lot of other wildlife, is either just after dawn or sometime around dusk. The reason that can be a bit of a challenge is that you really want to try and avoid driving on Yellowstone's roads at night. The reason for this is that buffalo and some of the other animals are the same color as the road, and it's far, far, far too easy to hit an animal, and that's something you obviously really want to avoid at all costs. So we generally don't drive on Yellowstone's roads, our tour company and our taxi service, when it's dark, unless it's an absolute necessity. So that's why it makes a lot more sense to try and stay somewhere close to the Lamar Valley. For those of you who are watching this on YouTube, I'm going back to our video again. You can see there's a buffalo herd in the background off to the right. And there is just so much wildlife there. Now, people often ask me, well, how do I see a wolf in Yellowstone? How do I find a wolf? And the answer is actually pretty simple. Go to the Lamar Valley, look for the big crowds. Where you see the big crowds, you're going to see a wolf with any luck. Okay, I am saying that tongue in cheek, but the Lamar Valley really is, as I mentioned before, the prime location to try and see wolves in Yellowstone. And when our tours get there, if it's not a specific wolf watching tour, or we're trying to find animals on the tour, and we get there at whatever time it is, 12 or 1 o'clock, because we're leaving from West Yellowstone, you get there and you'll see these people sitting out in their deck chairs with these cameras with their ultra long lenses and telescopes, which are also a couple of yards long. And you say, "Hey guys, what are you doing here?" And they say, "Well, Joe saw a wolf." We say, "Cool. Where is it?" "Oh, he saw it at about 6 a.m. So now that's 7 or 8 hours ago, but the keen wolf watcher will still be there, hoping that the wolf is going to show its face again. But when you do see a wolf, it really is such a special occasion. The spring is a great time to see wolves. And if you're watching this on YouTube, I just mentioned that I've just been sighted because I saw a big crowd with cameras and telescopes, and I pulled over to see what they were looking at, and sure enough, it was a wolf or a bear or something that people had seen literally hours and hours before. There's a great site that I use and that my company and our guides use to keep up to date on wolves, and I suggest you may like to consider taking a look at it, and that's yellowstonewolf.org. So www.yellowstonewolf.org. And it is a great resource, not only for what's currently happening with wolves in the park, but they go back in some detail about how the packs were formed, the interaction between individual wolves in the pack, and interaction between the various wolves in Yellowstone as well. I'm sorry, I meant the various wolf packs in Yellowstone as well. In addition to its wildlife, the Lamar River is really one of Yellowstone's best locations for fly fishing. For those of you who don't know, we have some of the best fly fishing anywhere in the world in the Yellowstone area. And we haven't come to it quite yet if you're watching the YouTube video. But we have already passed it if you're watching the YouTube video, but there's an area called Slough Creek, that's spelled S-L-O-U-G-H, Slough Creek, which is probably the best fishing anywhere in the world in the spring. The problem, as is so often the case, is that the road leading up to Slough Creek, which is a 2-mile graded dirt road, is often closed in the spring for what's called bear management, which I talk about a lot in one of our other Yellowstone podcasts and in several of our Yellowstone tours. But Slough Creek is a beautiful area. There's a little campground there. I think there's only 16 camp spots or something, so it's difficult to get a spot. But if you are in the Lamar Valley and if your vehicle is up to it, take a little detour to Slough Creek. It is well worth the trip. Now the Lamar Valley, and if you're looking at it on YouTube once again, you can see some more bison on the right-hand side of the road, or the south side of the road, as we head towards the northeast entrance. The Lamar Valley leads to some of Yellowstone's most stunning scenery. I've often felt that as you get to Yellowstone's extremities, as you get to the various entrances to Yellowstone, the scenery so often gets better, and this is particularly true with the northeast entrance and the east entrance. And I deal with the east entrance in another podcast as well as in other virtual Yellowstone tours. But the scenery at the northeast entrance, as you leave the Lamar Valley, start making your way alongside Soda Butte Creek, it's just so stunning. You come across these mountains. The roads seem to get a little narrower. You've got the mountains closing in on either side of you. You've got forests everywhere. You've got rivers and streams, and the scenery is really spectacular. What I like to do is take a long loop through the Lamar Valley to the northeast entrance, and then take something called the Chief Joseph Highway down to Cody, Wyoming, and come in again at the east entrance. Now that's something I talk about in another one of our Yellowstone podcasts, but you get the best of so many worlds. There's a lot of wildlife to see. The scenery is so beautiful, and you get to virtually live a part of such important American history concerning Chief Joseph and the Nez Perce tribe, the Nez Perce Native Americans. So, to summarize, guys, Lamar Valley is well worth a visit. It is a must-see on any Yellowstone trip, not only for the incredible scenery, but also for the abundant wildlife. If you'd like to find out more about the Lamar Valley, please check out our virtual Yellowstone tours at virtualyellowstonetours.com, or go to YouTube. As I mentioned before, you can get a lot more information and actually check out a video of the route there, because we have got videos in our virtual Yellowstone tours of every single road in Yellowstone. So there is just so much to see and so much that you can learn by checking those out. And by the way, if you're looking at this on YouTube, that area on the left there is actually fenced off, and it's what scientists call a control area. And I go through that in the virtual Yellowstone tour that is running in the background if you are watching that on YouTube. Also, if you're watching on YouTube, the area just coming up on the left now, those hills to the left, just right next to the road, I often see bighorn sheep there. Bighorn sheep are to be found in Yellowstone's northern range, and this is part of the northern range, particularly in the winter. I do get to see quite a lot of them. Anyway, I digress. I hope I've given you some information about the Lamar Valley, which has been valuable to you. If you'd like more information, don't hesitate to email us at podcast@yellowstonepodcasts.com. You can also text us at 406-219-8885. That's 406-219-8885. If you're looking for somewhere to stay in the Yellowstone area, please consider our motel in West Yellowstone, which you can see at westyellowstonelodge.com. Again, if you're looking for a Yellowstone tour, we offer more Yellowstone tours than literally anybody else in the entire world, from just about every western U.S. city, as well as from the regional cities, West Yellowstone, Bozeman, Idaho Falls, Rexburg, Jackson, and various others. Thank you for joining me on our Yellowstone podcast today, and I hope you make it to Yellowstone sometime.